Thank you, Condola. Hello, everyone. My name is Fiza. I'm development economist from UNDP Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam. So I do have a slide because it's supposed to be participatory approach. So I'm gonna involve everyone here for participation. Okay, so as Cordula has mentioned that UNDP basically is a sister agency to UN Tourism, but for UNDP we specializes in development programs on behalf of the whole entire UN, basically. So we have been partnering with the government of Malaysia since 1950s. So we have been advising government a lot, at federal level, at the state level, at the district level. So it's whole of nation approach. So besides being a UNDP development economist, now I'm actually the program analyst for inclusive and economic management sustainable management for governance and local development in UNDP. I'm also wearing another hat, actually. So I was appointed as the head for sustainable practices by Tourism Productivity Nexus. Is actually a government and also private sector establishment sitting both in the government as well as with the private sector. So that actually allowed me to actually have a very good position to draft the sustainable tourism on the ground. And at the same time, because of this as well, we managed to accelerate, and the approach that we wanted to use for the sustainable tourism as well as INSTO is actually nationwide approach that covers from the top, which is the policy level, where Portugal actually, that's the framework that is being used, as well up to the level of the destination. So we are basically putting in strategies for everything. And we participate our stakeholders from 5 areas. So which is the government, the NGOs, foundations and all, private sector, destination and also universities. So that's the approach that we actually use for national level up to on the ground. Okay, so before I actually move on further, I'd like to ask, do you know West Malaysia? Anyone knows West Malaysia? Okay, do you know West Thailand? I think less than 5. West Thailand? Do you know West Thailand? Bali, Indonesia? Yes? Philippines? Yes? Okay, Singapore. Okay, so Malaysia is actually located between Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei, and also Philippines. So that's where we are. So essentially, that basically is a destination that has a lot of potential, but we are not well known in the whole global anyway. However, the tourism sector is moving towards the sustainability because of the government initiative as well. So before I actually move on, okay, we have a lot of different sectors and participation from different stakeholders. May I ask, anyone from the federal agencies or ministries within the room? At ministry level? Okay. Destination at the local council? Okay. Private sector? Yes. Private sector? University? Okay. So the reason why I ask is because of, for Malaysia, the initiative that we actually use and the participatory approach that we use involve every one of you at different level. So when I said that, that means that for government, for instance, we actually engage from the federal level where you actually have all the plannings, economic planning unit, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Natural Resources, Malaysia Productivity Corporation, Department of Statistics, as well as the Ministry of Local Government to be part of INSTO and also sustainable tourism. So that the extent that we actually have engaged for ministry to influence and also to embed the sustainable tourism as well as INSTO within the policy. So moving forward, we actually looking into embed the sustainable tourism and also INSTO within the 13 Malaysia plan, which is the midterm to long-term planning of Malaysia, as well as the national tourism policy. So that is basically at the federal level. But of course, because we actually embed that, then you actually have change of minister, you have change of personnel. Some of our ministerial officers are basically the diplomats that you actually have to shift within 2-3 years. You get appointment to different positions. So to ensure that the sustainable tourism and also in-store is actually embedded within the framework of the nation, we actually include and manage to convince the government to include in-store and also sustainable practices as part of the national strategy. So we hope, regardless whether or not you change minister, even the prime minister, you change the government, it stays there with allocated budget from the federal national budget, which is the Ministry of Finance. So that is in the process, and we hope that it will be materialized in 2025, because the planning is 2026 to 2030. So that's for 13 Malaysia plan. And at the same time, because we already have the national tourism policy up to 2025, we actually ensure that they amend and revise the national tourism policy to include in-store as part of the initiative, and how that is escalating from the federal level to the state to the destination. So that is the strategy for the government at the federal level. Then you move on to the local council. So local council in Malaysia, we actually have about 159 local council in the whole entire Malaysia. And for destination management at the destination, it's actually led by the local council. So, and they actually have separate power compared to the federal level. So they are the one who manage the planning. They are the one that manages the finances and also the tourism planning at the destination. Although they do have some support from the federal in terms of budget, as well as the state, because the state also has a different pot of budget for tourism. So it lies with the local council, and that's where we actually engage and also support the local council to ensure that they are implementing participatory approach. Because to the government of Malaysia at the destination level, most of the time they are the enforcer of law. They don't engage much with the tourism sector, private sector. You are talking about boat operators, because if, let's say, you are talking about sustainable tourism management, towards the end it's actually the practices on the ground that matters the most. Or else, monitoring is just monitoring, it's just numbers. How do you actually ensure the change on the ground by the players is captured in the monitoring and fit that into the tourism planning back? So to us, that is the purpose of the in-store at the destination level, and that's where we are helping the local council to guide them in regards to the process. What are the best approach? Who are the people that you should approach? Whether or not you should be engaging the minister, the private sector, the NGOs, community, up to that level, the extent of the guide that we actually proceed with the destination. Then we also have the private sector. Private sector as well as the NGOs. So for UNDP approach, for nationwide approach, we actually have several initiatives that engage the private sector, because we ask private sector, what stops you from participating in sustainable tourism? We need to actually listen to it. Is it capacity? You don't understand what sustainable tourism is all about. You don't know the way. Or is it the costing that is the problem? Because towards the end, private sector always look into maximizing cost and also, maximizing profit and reducing costs. So we look into that, and we also provided them with training. So it's a 6 months training to the tourism industry champions or leaders that has 1,000 members underneath them. You have, hundreds and people that would be able to be influenced with the position of the industry leader. So that is the approach that we wanted. We have just completed it last week, and we have already awarded them with Sustainable Tourism Champion during World Tourism Day celebration, which it was announced in the whole entire nation. So it is a pride, but at the same time, it is a responsibility for the private sector to drive sustainable practices on the ground. So that is the approach that we actually use, because towards the end, we are looking into the um, support from the private sector to understand what is sustainable tourism practices, to make a change through the practices, and to feed the data into Insto. If let's say they do not understand all this, they will not be willing to actually participate even in Insto or sustainable practices. So to us, that is one of the initiatives that we do. But at the same time, because we can't reach out to the whole entire nation, we have a lot of people that is involved in the tourism sector, which is informal sector. Community-based tourism, for instance. You have some leaders, but it's impossible for us to actually reach out to every single person. So we actually established the Sustainable Tourism Roadmap, or as a guideline, to support the private sector especially on how to move from where you are, self-assessment in terms of sustainable practices, to the end goal, which is the sustainable tourism. So we actually have that, and we are in the process of consulting the public consultation actually on the draft itself. So if let's say there are other changes that they think that might need to be included, so we will be including that as well. Other than that, we also have the innovation challenge for waste management for islands, because for Malaysia, 70% of the domestic tourists go to the island for holiday. So we actually see the increase of amount of the what we call that, the waste issues, wastewater issues, because in Malaysia we have different culture in regards to using toilets, and also water is really important. The way they actually look into the practices is also different. So that is another aspect that we engage. So last two areas that I wanted to touch is participation of university, because they are very much into the research. I mean, that is the strength of the university, research methods. And that's where we actually get the support from the university to go into supporting the data ecosystem in the whole entire nation. So every university in Malaysia, we actually have one in every 13 states in Malaysia. So we engage them to support any destination within the country that is interested to be part of Insto, but doesn't have capacity to do so. So last but not least, we actually have engagement with NGOs nationwide, as well as at the destination, to support the local government as well, to ensure that this is basically inclusive, and also it is part of the participation that is not only looking from the community, because they are working very closely with the community, but as well as other aspect of that. So basically that's about it. Thank you very much to all of you, and I hope that whatever that I share touches bits and pieces of whatever that you do on the ground, and to your roles as well. Thank you.